Oh,
Yep,
here we go.
yep.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to day 2 of Digital Marketing Europe 2022. I'm Jason Barnard. I'm your host for today on the Powerful Brands track. I call myself the Brand SERP guy. I specialize in brand SERPs. That's what appears when your audience Googles or Bings your brand name or your personal name. And we're going to start off. Oh, and the reason I wanted to host this particular track is because I focus on brand SERPs, what appears when somebody Googles or Bings your brand name or your personal name. And I wanted to learn from people like Ravi all about the stuff around branding and brands that I don't understand and I don't know. And I've just been analyzing and looking through Ravi's profiles, and you work at Microsoft on Clarity, which I've just installed on my website, and I'm waiting for the data. Can you tell us a little bit about what you do at Microsoft?
Awesome. Yeah. Thanks, Jason, for introducing me. So I'm Ravi. I'm a product manager at Microsoft, and I work on this new product called Microsoft Clarity. And I lead a PM team trying to help provide behavioral analytics to everyone.
Right. We just had a quick chat about it before, and it's astonishingly interesting. And I didn't realize. And now I'm really looking forward to the data. I really want to see how users are interacting on my site. But you're using the data on a much bigger scale. I mean, there's a big master plan behind this. Can you just give us a very short introduction to what that looks like?
Sure. If you think about how users are using your website, it's basically able to connect with your customers even when they're miles away or wherever they are and whatever device they're using. And once you can understand how they are interacting with your site, then you can offer them products. You can offer them uh, coupons. You can offer them different incentives to help drive your business KPIs. For example, if you're a retailer and you know this users may be a bit confused on this product description, showing a pop-up and helping them navigate to the next step or helping them convert by giving them an additional discount. All of these things can be done in the future once we understand how users actually use your site.
Absolutely brilliant. And just for anybody who's interested, I literally installed it in 3 minutes before we started talking. Click on Google Tag Manager, click on Google Analytics, ironically, and it's installed within 2 or 3 minutes and set up and running. And I'm looking forward to the data in a couple of hours. So, Ravi, I'm going to let you get on with your talk rather than going on about how I installed Clarity on my website this morning. Would you like to share your screen? And I'll leave you to it.
Yep. Thanks, Jason.
Oh,
I'm
I'm
just gonna
sorry, just
start.
before you start, anybody who has any questions, please do pop them in the Q&A. We'll answer them at the end. Thank you very much.
Cool. Thanks, Jason. And I'm sharing my screen so hopefully everyone can see. So today I'm going to talk to you about behavioral analytics and why they're important. So before we get into there, just a quick background. I already introduced myself a little bit, but I'm a product manager at Microsoft for almost 10 years working on search, AI, machine learning, and most recently analytics. And I lead the behavioral analytics tool called Microsoft Clarity. And we'll talk a little bit more about what that tool does. But today I really wanted to talk to you about the importance of behavioral analytics, how they can help marketers, product owners, and anyone that has a website to connect with their customers and improve their KPIs. But before we get started, let's start with some of the basics. And I think even in the earlier keynote presentation that happened, we started with quantitative and qualitative, right? When we're thinking about analytics, there's both of these types of analytics. And we think about quantitative, these are things that are countable, measurable data, and usually talk about what has happened. And if you use products like Google Analytics or other traffic analytics, you'll see metrics like bounce rate, pages per session, how many sessions that happened on your site, and maybe even page speed. But what we notice is a lot of folks don't really think about qualitative data. And qualitative data is more of a descriptive data and helps you understand the why behind the what, right? It's like looking at a movie or a restaurant and just getting a review that it's good or bad and not really digging into why it's good or why it's bad, right? And when you don't have this qualitative data to kind of join with your quantitative data, you start getting into trouble. For example, let's take a situation where you're behind in your goals and you need to increase your revenue. Now you have a team thinking of ideas and you kind of throwing out random ideas, seeing what sticks, but you don't really have a strategic way to go after your goals. Or what usually other happens is there's a hippo in the room. Hippo, the highest paid person in the room, usually makes a call saying, we need to do X or we need to do Y, and it ends up happening. But end of the day, you might still miss your targets. So to give you another kind of example, if we look at a page like this, where you recently made some changes to your website and you see these metrics. Now, from these metrics alone, it's really hard to understand what's going on, right? But if you were able to overlay some behavioral analytics, for example, you could actually replay how a user is using this page once you made these changes, maybe you'll notice some interesting phenomenon. For example, in this case, the user was on your page, they see this modal pop up, and they're trying to accept the cookies or click on more options or click on the X, but it doesn't seem to be going away. And that could be driving your loss in conversions, increasing your bounce rate, and all of these things that are quite bad. So being able to understand the why behind the metrics will help you understand what's going on. So in general, traffic analytics gives you a general sense of the average experience on your site. What's going on, where the users are coming from, how many pages are they visiting, how many clicks did they do overall. But then behavioral analytics is trying to help you identify the motivations for the users. Why were they interacting with certain elements, and and also understand the people that are engaging with your product in a meaningful way. And that's the real crux of this, and that's the main thing I want everyone to take away, is that it's not a this or that. It's not traffic analytics versus behavioral analytics. It's traffic analytics with behavioral analytics. It's two pieces of the pie that you should actually use together to get the full picture. And since we're at a marketing conference, let's think about behavioral analytics from a marketing lens. So if we think about what are the top things that are on any marketer's mind for their company or their product, is that one, how do I drive more sales or signups for my product or service? Two, how can I make my ad or social campaigns more effective and impactful? And how do I make my product more appealing to customers? And these are general questions. There's many ways to solve and try to answer these. And my goal here is to help you understand how behavioral analytics can help you answer and fill in some of the gaps to answer these questions. But with any kind of tools, you have a set of tool set, right? And when we think about behavioral analytics, there's three common sets of tools. The first is session replay. So kind of like what you saw a second ago with the animation, being able to actually replay a user's session, how they actually navigated, moved around the page, will actually give you a glimpse into how their experience was on your site. And then you can aggregate these sessions of users and generate heat maps of where they're clicking or even where they're not clicking, how far they're scrolling, to give you an overall aggregate view of what's going on. And then this is something I was talking to Jason just before the presentation, is that there's so many session replays and heat maps that you could be watching, but how do you know which ones to watch? And this is where user experience metrics come in that kind of help you find areas of problems on your site, like with metrics like rage clicks and dead clicks, which I'll talk about more in a bit. But those are kind of like the three arsenals or three tools in our arsenal to understand user behavior. So for the rest of the presentation, I'll actually talk about how different companies have used these sets of tools to improve their product and gain insights and improve their KPIs. So the first is improving your visibility for your key call to actions. So for this, I'm going to mention this was a case study with Travel Boom. And Travel Boom is a marketing agency that focuses on the travel sector. And the question Travel Boom was trying to answer is, why was their conversion below their target for their client Myrtle Beach golf trips? They tried various A/B experiments and they weren't really able to understand why conversions were low until they applied some behavioral analytics. Once they applied behavioral analytics, they looked at a scroll heat map, and that's what we're seeing right now. A scroll heat map is basically shows you how much of the content users are actually scrolling and seeing. And as you can imagine in any kind of heat map visualization, red means more visibility or more engagement, while the colder it gets, less and less, and that's more blue tone. So if we look at this scroll map, what we see is that their main key call to action, which is the Shop Now button, is actually below the fold. And for folks that are not aware with the terminology, we refer to websites as and the content that shows up when the page first loads, that the user doesn't have to scroll to reach, is things above the fold. So what they quickly noticed is that actually less than 40% or 50% of their users actually saw their main call to action, which is pretty much obvious of what we need to do next to improve their conversion. So as any one of you could probably think about is moving the call to action higher up on the page. And that's exactly what they did. They moved by trying various A/B experiments to make sure other metrics are also not compromised. And they were able to see a 30% increase in conversions. And all they had to do is spend less than 10 minutes looking at a scroll heat map to glean that insight and then make the necessary changes. And I really want to emphasize how important just visibility of your content is. And this is one of the problems we see in more and more of our customers is that their main key call to actions are just not accessible to customers. And another good example of that is with Take Lessons. Take Lessons is a learning platform for students and teachers to come together to connect and learn. And in this case, Take Lessons shipped a new feature called Live Online Group Lessons. And they created this giant landing page to educate users on this new feature and get them to sign up and start taking a part in live online group lessons. And what they found with, again, looking at a scroll heat map is that there are the users were actually one engaging with the parts of the page that they were expecting, and the parts that they really wanted to engage with, such as jump into a live class today, was actually all the way at the bottom of the page. And then they looked at what are the most important things users were engaging with as well, and they saw this core subject, the screenshot above, is where the second most important area for them was. And it was very much buried, and less than 15% of their students were actually reaching to these things. So again, just reordering these things, making sure they show up higher on the page, and making sure they show up above the fold led to 30% increase in engagement and driving more click-throughs and more actions for their students. And it sounds quite silly about how simple and how common sense it is to make sure that your call to actions are visible, but time and time again, we see that people don't take into account the screen size, the resolution, whether it's desktop or mobile. How does your web page actually show up to end users? And another important lesson or takeaway from behavioral analytics is product education. And a good example of this is with Pearly. Pearly is a DIY bubble tea kit brand, and they launched in the pandemic. So they rely on online sales for their business. So it's very important for them to educate customers on what their product is, what their brand is, and then help the customer check out. And and a product like bubble tea is actually growing in popularity, at least in the US. And as they're growing, they also need to educate customers on how they could actually make this at home. And what they found as they were looking at a click heat map, and a click heat map is where, again, similar to a scroll heat map, except that here we're highlighting where users are actually clicking with their mouse or tapping with their finger on mobile devices to see where they're engaging. And they found that when they looked at some of their product cards, most of the people were engaging with the learn more button rather than add to cart. So it was quite a good indication for them that people were actually confused about what the product was or how to use it, or there wasn't enough product information directly on this little snippet. And then they used session replay to kind of actually look at sessions where people clicked learn more. What did they do next? And they found out that most people were actually trying to understand how do you make it? If you're buying the kit, how do you actually make the kit? And how do you use it to actually make your bubble tea? And they realized they needed a short animation or a quick tutorial on how to actually use their product. So they went ahead and built a simple GIF that you see now about how they show how you can make bubble tea under 3 minutes, and it helped improve their conversions by over 35%, right? So here they took the opportunity of understanding where users were getting confused and lost and use that to their advantage to bring up the necessary information and help drive more conversions for themselves. And another area that is often overlooked is the sign up process. So a good example again for this is ProProfs. ProProfs is a cloud-based SaaS company offering help desk and other suite of tools to help connect website owners or customers in real time. And what they had done was created a full traffic funnel of the customer journey and using analytics like Google Analytics and other traffic analytics to build this customer journey map. And they found that the largest drop off was actually when they asked the user to sign up. And they also looked at what happened after they sign up. After post sign up, they were seeing good conversions. People were actually going ahead and purchasing their services. But the sign up was a huge drop off. Now, again, applying behavioral analytics, they looked at sessions where people were actually in the process of signing up. What were their challenges? And they realized that people were leaving midway. Sometimes it was too complicated, sometimes it was a bit confusing, so what they did was kind of simplify this, shorten the sign up process into three small steps. And this helped navigate the user from one experience to another and wasn't overly cumbersome and making it look very complicated. And this increased their monthly signups by 27% and helped improve like their overall conversions by 70%. So again, signups are usually part of the critical path for most websites or most products. And really focusing on where customers are getting frustrated in this process and making some changes to help solve those can go a long way in seeing gains. And this is without having to build huge new sets of innovative features or spending more dollars marketing. Very simple analysis you can do with behavioral tools. And as I was mentioning about, improving the sign up process, it's not just focusing on certain flows, but you can also use behavioral analytics to improve your end-to-end user experience, especially for new products or products that are maybe difficult for an average customer. And a good case study of this is with Hello Prenup. Hello Prenup is an online platform that helps engaged couples create their own prenuptial agreement without any lawyers involved. And I think this was one of those startups that actually premiered on Shark Tank. Just realized that because our earlier keynote speaker was also talking about how he participated in Shark Tank so often. So Hello Prenup, their main challenges were they wanted to understand what were the key user pain points that users were facing. This is a very difficult product. It's not an average user product, and it turns to have a very complicated topic. There's a lot of legal jargon. So how do they make this experience seamless as possible? So here again, they used some of the metrics, especially the customer experience metrics, to understand what was going on. The first thing they looked at was rage clicks. So rage clicks is basically when users click very frequently in a small region of space, like they're doing in this animation right now, where the user is actually trying to fill in the value, but the value is actually supposed to be filled into the box below, but the way the design of this interface is, the user is actually confused and thinks that they need to like click and enter next to the dollar sign. So this is creating what we call rage clicks, and behavioral analytics are able to capture this. And then when you look at these sessions, Hello Prenup was able to understand that they need to potentially simplify this, make it a little less confusing, and making sure whether the user clicking there or highlighting that they need to enter in the Dropbox would help resolve some of this. And another thing they noticed was with their copywriting. So as you can imagine, when you're dealing with a document like a prenuptial document, there's so much legalese, It's very confusing for an average user. So what they noticed by watching session recordings is that they actually saw users moving their mouse across the screen as if they were reading the page, and like what we do with following a book with our finger. So they were able to see sessions where users were kind of maybe going over a section multiple times, or kind of were confused based on their mouse movements, and realized those were areas of legal jargon maybe they should improve, because it might be too confusing. So making these changes for both of these types of issues and a couple other suite of smaller issues that they discovered, they were able to increase their month over month revenue by 32%, which is huge, just by connecting with their customers, taking a journey in the user's digital shoe to find out these frustrations. And it's not limited to just customer experience and whatever what's happening in the site itself, but you can also look at data coming from your social media or ad campaigns. And that's exactly what the challenge Adapt World faced. So Adapt World is a digital performance marketing agency in the UK, and their client Middleton's was using Google Ads to drive traffic from to their site. And they realized that even though they were driving so much additional traffic, it wasn't really converting in much sales. So this is a common challenge that most marketers face. Now, they wanted to improve their conversion rate and reduce their cost per acquisition. So again, they use behavioral analytics, and actually they use behavioral analytics plus traffic analytics together. So one, they went through the same kind of discovery as Hello Prenup, where they found a lot of sessions where users had rage clicks, where they were actually confused and clicking on things that maybe weren't clickable, or clicking on things and that didn't work. And then they overlaid this qualitative behavioral data with Google Analytics data, and they were able to actually slice and dice segments of users and find different opportunities of improvements. And all of that kind of helped them lead to improving their conversions by 86%, and then even reducing their cost per acquisition by 25% or 41%, depending on the ad, what the ad product was. So again, kind of talking about using it to improve your customer experience, but you can also use this to understand a segment of customer users, right? Filtering to just folks that come through your ad campaigns, social media campaigns, and see where they're struggling. And a few other key metrics I also want to talk about that we didn't get to mention yet is dead clicks. So dead clicks, and this is actually an example we faced on our own product website, where we talk about session playbacks, and we show a little image of this to kind of make it a little bit more friendly. And users actually started clicking on the play button, expecting it to do something. So that's a common example of dead click, where users click somewhere expecting something to happen, but nothing happens. And it's a good insight for us that actually users might be confused. They might think the site is broken because it didn't play. We should make this into something, because users might be expecting that. And another case we tend to see a lot of dead clicks is also in like retail websites, especially in checkout pages. Retailers tend to have these templated checkout pages where users are maybe wanting to go back and look at the product one more time, like in this case, where they might be trying to go back and see these sunglasses, but all of those clicks actually don't do anything. They don't actually take you to the product page again. And it's another missed opportunity for a website owner to help the customer reduce their frustration, help them navigate to where they need to go. And we already talked about rage clicks a little bit, but I wanted to show you a subtlety in rage clicks. Rage clicks could be sometimes very hard to discover, or find you very hard to discover problems. For example, in this case on Bing search engine, what we found with rage clicks was that users were actually clicking on this small region right to the left of the search term, trying to highlight the term so they could replace it and write a new search query. So if you look at how that page was kind of built up, or that search box, There's the blue region, which is actually the region you can click and change the keywords. But users were, very precise in actually clicking on the orange section, and that didn't do anything, right? So understanding the rage clicks that happened there led us to improving and fixing that margin issue that led to various improvements in SAT metrics for the search engine, improving requery rate, helping people query and find their right results faster. So with that, I wanted to provide some key takeaways for behavioral analytics, right? The first and foremost is that behavioral analytics is not a replacement for web analytics or traffic analytics. You should think about using them in conjunction, right? It helps you get the full picture and actually be able to make meaningful changes by understanding the why behind the what, right? Stop guessing on why some metric changed, but actually visualize and see what went on. The second is um, help understand user frustration points, right? Using metrics like rage clicks, dead clicks, excessive scrolling, and so forth, you can actually answer questions that you didn't even know how to ask, right? And behavioral analytics makes it very easy to look at the data and make these conclusions. And then finally, behavioral analytics is very simple to use, very accessible for anyone, and things like heat maps and session recordings doesn't require a data scientist degree to actually learn and interpret. You can actually look at this and actually follow and empathize with the user very, very easily. So that's why we believe behavioral analytics truly democratizes analysis for user behavior on the web. So by now, you probably, hopefully, are thinking, if you're not already using behavioral analytics, give me some behavioral analytics. So I have one solution for you, which is Microsoft Clarity. So that's the product I lead. And Microsoft Clarity launched in October of 2020 with a mission to empower everyone to build better products by democratizing behavioral analytics. And we have three main core functionalities. And we already talked about some of these as part of the toolkit. But one is the session recording, right? Helping you really understand why when problems are happening, right? Where users are struggling, find where your site's working and where it's not. And we've seen many, many different use cases for session recordings, right? You can validate product changes. Are people able to actually find the new features you've added? Are people able to actually go to the call to actions you're seeing? And you can even find product opportunities like we saw in the little play button that users were clicking on that maybe could be actually a video that explains how session recordings work. And then second is that aggregating the sessions, you can generate these heat maps, whether it's scroll heat maps or click heat maps. It can help you pinpoint the major areas people are actually engaging with. So you can optimize your page for whatever your call to actions are. For example, if making sure your ads are placed in the right place, your key sign up or buy buttons are in the right place, detect where people are dropping off. And it's a really easy tool to actually show to your stakeholders of what's going on your page, right? At any point, if you want to make design decisions and improve the product, now you have something tangible to work with, something you can actually show and discuss rather than hypotheticals. And that's what behavioral analytics is really powerful with. And then, just like before the talk, Jason asked me a very similar, interesting question, which is that there's so many heat maps and session recordings, which one should I watch, right? And that's where a dashboard full of metrics come in, and especially customer experience metrics like rage clicks, dead clicks we talked about, or even looking at where JavaScript errors were played, and that could be having some issues to your site. So really drilling down into areas where you found issues with your site and then removing those to help improve your product and website. And as I mentioned, all of this functionality and all of these case studies were actually built using Clarity. And I wanted to give you a little history of why we built this product and why we made it a public product as well. So to give you some history, it all kind of started with a Reddit post. One time on Reddit, we ran across a post that said, When this user was searching on Bing, they found that they were seeing purple ads, right? Which is quite odd because we definitely don't put purple ads, and I'm sure that would not really convert too well. And in fact, they look quite hideous, right? The ads are have this really dark purple. They're very unappealing and even distract you from the real content. And so we wanted to understand how where does this come from? Why are some users seeing this and why not others? And this is where again behavioral analytics helped us solve this very quickly. So we had an internal version of Clarity that we were already toiling with, and we applied that to Bing, and we saw something interesting. We saw sessions where people had these purple ads. There was these little badges that were also on all of the links. And if you want to look at them more closely, some of you might already know what they are, but it's actually these link checkers from an antivirus software called Kaspersky Labs. And what Kaspersky was doing was turning some of these ads purple based on some ad blocker configuration issues. So we were able to easily detect what was the root cause by just actually looking at the session, and then went ahead and made the change to improve the user experience for these users that were using Kaspersky Lab or were using these ad blockers. So from learning from this, we realized that this is a really powerful tool and we want this to be available to everybody. So that's why we launched Clarity to be a tool for everyone. We want it to be simple, accessible, and to really democratize it, we made the product completely free. And that's one of the major benefits, right? You can use Clarity as much as you want without any charge. There's no paid tiers. There isn't going to be any paid tiers. We're not going to upsell you other products. It's all about helping you understand your users and improve your product. And the second biggest thing we know anytime you use analytics on any web page is the performance and the impact of performance. So we made sure that we built Clarity, and actually Clarity came from the performance team within Bing, that we made sure it was the lightest weight JavaScript plugin that you could add, and making sure it doesn't actually block any of your critical web page applications or processes. And then, of course, it's GDPR and CCPA compliant, and it's built for scale, right? As we tried and tested this with large scale products like Bing, MSN, and other Microsoft products, we are able to handle terabytes of data, millions of users. So it's really built for anyone, whether you're a small blogger or a giant retailer. And one of the other things we really wanted to take into account was user privacy. And that's where we focused a lot on masking. So, what masking is, and you might have seen this in some of the screenshots I showed, is that sometimes you see the data in asterisks. And that's because we automatically mask up certain content like form fields, but we also give the control to the website owner to decide how much of the content they want to actually mask out and not be captured. And that happens directly at the client, so there's no sensitive information ever being sent to the servers. And then to show us to truly be transparent in exactly how Clarity works, we completely open source the code. So you can actually view, learn, and even contribute to Microsoft Clarity. And we've seen other companies already do so, and we're pretty happy about that. And if you use any other analytics tools, the setup is very much similar. There's a piece of JavaScript code you put in your head section of your website, and that's it. And if you use something like Google Tag Manager, as Jason mentioned, it takes less than 2 minutes to kind of install. So, and we also work with other products and other third-party platforms, so you can engage with that. But the other benefit I really want to make sure you understand is behavioral analytics and Microsoft Clarity isn't just for marketers, but it could be used throughout your product team, right? Whether you're a marketer trying to understand conversions or a site manager trying to see if people are paying attention to your call to actions, or if you're a product manager like me trying to understand, is this feature resonating with users? Is it good enough to ship? Um, or a creator to understand, are people engaging with my blogs or engaging with my content? And even for designers, as we develop and improve the site, are people actually navigating it and traversing it the way we intended, or are they getting stuck somewhere and lost? And of course, for engineers, there's so many, this is a perfect tool to help them find issues, bugs, all of these corner edge cases that are really hard to test offline. Some of these you can see from live data itself. And one of the questions I always get asked whenever I talk about behavioral analytics or clarity is, how do you actually do this analysis? So I created a quick, couple step guide to help you kickstart your own analysis if you wanted to do this. So one, start with what the purpose of your analysis is, right? What are the key metrics and key KPIs you're going after? For example, we actually run Clarity on Clarity, our homepage, and we look at how the sign up flow is. We're trying to help reduce the churn there and reduce the drop offs there. So that was basically one of my analysis purposes. Then I try to focus on what are the pages I need to analyze, whether it's the landing page because I'm doing some marketing or I'm spending some ad dollars, or the sign up flow, like I mentioned. And then I usually start with click or scroll heat maps to understand the user behavior in aggregate, see what's really going on and where people are dropping off, where they're not engaging, or why are they engaging with something that I didn't expect them to engage with. And in parallel, you can also look at rage clicks and dead clicks, which are good indicators of user frustrations, and see what's going on there. And then from either of these things, you can go from some of the clicked regions to session recordings, right? Looking at the aggregate data, now drill into sessions where that kind of data was engaged with and see what really happened. And then the thing that most people tend to forget is leveraging the large set of filters, right? You can filter to traffic from ad campaigns using UTM parameters, or you can filter to by demographic of regions, of where the user came from, what type of device. All of these things will help you narrow down and find you interesting sessions to watch. So hopefully with that, I was able to provide some clarity, and you're able to hopefully bring clarity to your product and drive your KPIs. So with that, I want to thanks everyone for listening, and thanks for the conference for inviting me to speak, and sharing some links here about how to get to clarity. Check out our open source code. If you want to follow us on social media, you can. And if you have any questions after the conference, or you want to chat with me more, I have my my work email there as well. So feel free to contact me. So with that, really want to thanks everyone for attending this talk.
Absolutely brilliant, Ravi. Thank you so much. We've got a brilliant talk that we just listened to. While you were talking, I installed 2 more clarities on 2 more websites. And it's really, really, really groovy. I've got some data in and I'm already starting to look at it. Astonishing stuff. And we've got some questions. So if you'd like to now start answering them, Gary Mendez has asked, how do you differentiate between a problem like dead links, rage clicks, etc., and just a one-off problem or two users are having? Do you have a threshold for what constitutes a behavioral analytic as opposed to just a dreaded user error?
Great question. And I don't think there will be an answer that's completely satisfies you, Gary, but usually when you do filter this dead clicks or rage clicks, you actually start seeing the data on the dashboard filter to all of the sessions that was involved. So you'll see if this was across 10 pages or 100 pages or 1,000 pages, and you'll see what percentage of your user interactions were rage clicks. So that might give you some of the magnitude of your problem you're facing. Then the other is that there could be rage clicks or dead clicks at different parts of your page. So once you see a particular session or two, you could actually look at that session metadata and filter to use that metadata to generate a new filter set, and then look at to see if other users with the same set of maybe device type or location are having the same problem.
Brilliant stuff. We also have a question from Vehelimina Osip. So I just searched Microsoft Clarity in WordPress for my e-commerce shop and install. So I mean, the multiple platforms, the installation on different platforms. You mentioned Wix, you mentioned WordPress. I did it manually through the platform using GTM and Google Analytics on WordPress site. Can you explain that in a little bit more detail so people are reassured?
Yeah, there's a great Microsoft Clarity WordPress plugin. So you can go ahead and click one button and then it'll install Clarity on your site for you. We also have recently announced a partnership with AIO SEO, all-in-one SEO. And if you use that product as well, they have an installation process for Clarity there as well. But it should be quite straightforward for you to use it on your WordPress site.
Brilliant. And
And
what
since you're an e-commerce site, actually, there's even more benefits you can get. For example, you can even, if you're using JSON LD or other schema like that, you can actually find where users were looking at your top products, where carts are being abandoned, and things like that to help drill down into pain points for an e-commerce site.
Talking of which, sites like Shopify and so on and so forth, that the installation is just as simple.
Yep, yep, just the same way.
You've created a set of plugins to integrate very simply.
Yep. So if you go to our documentation from our homepage, you'll see the step-by-step guides for each of these platforms.
Right. Okay. And just to reassure everybody, I mean, as I said, I just installed it through in fact, through the interface on Clarity using Google Tag Manager, and literally took 2 minutes. And I've installed it on WordPress sites and our own bespoke site that we built. So absolutely no problem for installing it. Thank you. Now, another big question is, what's the difference between Clarity and Hotjar? That's from
Sure.
Hazim.
That's a great question. Well, Hotjar is also a great product. It also provides behavioral analytics. But if you're trying to save money, I would say go with Clarity. Hotjar costs you money unless you're using the free tier. So you'll get all of the benefits like session recording, heat maps, and you'll get these dashboard and metrics that I don't think Hotjar currently has. Hotjar does have surveys and feedback tools that Clarity currently doesn't have. So depending on your needs, right? I'm going to be completely transparent with you. So if you're trying to save money and use a product that works just as well, go ahead and use Clarity.
Absolutely brilliant. And Phil Boughton asks, where is Clarity's data stored? I mean, this is the GDPR side of things. Is it stored within the EU for EU Clarity users?
Great question. The in the US data centers, that's based on our current legal advice from our legal team. We are potentially looking at EU as well, but that is not available at the moment.
So how do you stay GDPR compliant? Because I thought that was part of the problem.
No, under GDP compliance, it doesn't require the data has to be stored. I'm not a legal expert, but we had
Right.
our legals review and privacy review this, but um, since the way the data is anonymized and it's not trying to be stored as a processor, we're okay to store this data in the US data centers.
Okay, it's the anonymization that allows it to be GDPR
Yeah.
compliant rather than the storage. Absolutely brilliant. And Mariam Masood asks, is Clarity only compatible with websites or will it be compatible with apps as well?
Great question. So anywhere you can put JavaScript, you can put Clarity. So websites, mobile websites, of course. Native apps like iOS and Android apps, currently Clarity does not work for it. But sneak peek, we're working towards that. So check out, keep on the lookout. So hopefully we'll release that sometime soon so you can use it on apps as well.
Absolutely brilliant. That's really great. I had a question as well about Google Analytics and Clarity, because I've actually hooked up the Google Analytics and I'm wondering what advantage, what extra data information I'll be getting.
Yeah, great question. So when you actually incorporate and connect your Google Analytics with Clarity, you can actually go to your Google Analytics dashboard and you'll see a new dimension called Clarity Playback URL. So you
Ooh.
can jump from a particular slice of data from Google dashboard directly to Clarity to see what happened in that session. And you can also, you probably already spent so many years building segments or filter sets in Google Analytics that now get imported to Clarity. So you can filter by those. So it gives you the best of both worlds. Our hope is using both of these tools to get a better understanding of what's happening on your site.
Right. Okay. Absolutely brilliant. I mean, I'm really looking forward to starting using this. I mean, we've got a courses site, an academy, and your example earlier on, looking at how people are learning and interacting with the learning materials, looks to me like it's going to be incredibly informative for when we want to create the next set of learning materials.
Yep.
I mean, that's exciting. Obviously, we've got the conversion question, but we've also got how are people learning and how wrong have we got it? And I'm beginning to think we probably got it quite wrong.
Well, hopefully clarity can provide you some clarity.
Brilliant. That's a great way to end it. Thank you so much, Ravi. That was absolutely brilliant. I'm stunned that I was so interested in this particular first off topic. I was really looking forward to the Powerful Brands track, and it's got off to a kicking start thanks to Ravi. Thank you very much. And to everybody watching, thank you for your questions. This is the end of this first session, and the next session is going to be Alexander Novikov from Way Boutique talking about purpose-driven brand. And I'm really looking forward to that as I learn more and more about brands and powerful brands on the internet, digital marketing. How absolutely delightful. Thank you so much. Ravi, have you got anything you'd like to leave us with?
Nope. Thanks a lot for having me, and thanks a lot, Jason.
Absolutely brilliant. And thank you to Digital Marketing Europe for inviting such a great set of speakers. So I'll see you in 15 minutes in the next session with our friend Alexander. And we're rolling down the last 8 seconds. Thank you so much, everybody. That was delightful. Thank you, Ravi. And I hope to see you very soon.